afternoon. My name is Corky Kessler, and I happen to be a principal in a firm in Chicago called Deutsch, Levy, and Engel. And I want to thank Mondecrest, Q, and I want to thank the Hyatt, Paramax Films, GTV, and SRG Accountants. We are here talking about China, which should be on everyone's mind, and international productions, whether they're Chinese or not. But in practice, we were just talking about how we can have an Italy, Canada, China co-production because they're all part of treaties, and if you got the right project, they all can work together. I met this gentleman, Manilo, and this gentleman at the Cannes Film Festival, and he comes to my party dressed in a tuxedo, and he says to me when he comes to my party dressed, "Why are you wearing a tuxedo?" He says, "Well, it was going to a premiere movie that we were going to go to, but I decided I'd come to your party instead." So, a wonderful director and producer through Italy. We've got Nancy, we've got Ping, we've got Raymond. Raymond, let's start having you introduce yourself, please.
Independent producer in Canada. I have been doing films since the late 80s, and over the years the reality of financing films purely in Canada has become a harder and harder game. And so I learned, as Canada was kind of increasing its bank of international treaties, I learned how to work with foreign parties more and more. And about 10 years ago, I landed in China, desperate to find the last piece of a film that we had come to the conclusion needed to be a co-production with China. And I met Jiang right around that same time. And so began my relationship with China, and I've been going back and forth. I think I've been back and forth now to Beijing probably 36 times and spent a lot of time there. So China's become a very, very big part of my life, but I also am co-producing with various European partners, and I handily have a second passport, an English passport, that will probably come to play and to do something under the European Convention at some point, whether or not Brexit follows through and happens. So I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And the last film we just done is actually a purely Canadian film, the first time I've done one in quite some time. Very aggravating experience, but we're fortunate that we can actually do those films once in a while that didn't require any foreign sales or anything to actually shoot the film and complete it.
What film was that?
Meditation Park. It premiered last night here.
Okay, Ping.
Hi, my name is Ping. I'm actually Canadian Chinese. I have a studio called Yellow Mountain Studio in China. I have been in business over, close to 20 years as well. I think in 2005, I actually back to China and set up a joint venture with the China Film Group. And at that time, actually, we met in the China Film Group's office with Raymond Massey. So since then, I did co-production with Canada and with India, British, New Zealand, and actually this time I just come from Venice. Actually, we have 3 pictures gonna close with Italy, Canada, and China, 3-week co-production. So that's it. Thanks.
Manilo.
Yeah. My name is Manilo Roseano. I come originally from Italy, based in Germany now. I'm active as director producing. I do co-productions in all European area through Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, Italy, of course, and UK. Sorry I forgot my tuxedo today, but it's all right.
Yeah.
And so I'll be here in the panel to discuss co-productions, because in Europe there's only now one way to do films, it's co-productions. And it's very hard, well, almost impossible to do them with United States because there is no treaty. But with Canada, it's like another foreign country, so that's a very good way to do films with all Europe. I mean, of course, there are problems of language, dubbing, distribution, whatever, but it's doable. That's
Nancy?
My name's Nancy Hicks, and I'm from Vancouver. I'm a producer, and I have a 25-year background in television, in front of the camera. Then I decided several years ago I would become a producer, and after many years produced my first film, If I Had Wings, and we got 2 Leo nominations and shot in Vancouver. And my niche is China, so we're doing 2 films together, 2 co-productions with Italy and China and Canada. And of course they'll be, out distributed in North America, and international films with international storylines. So actually our second film, our first one's called Pasta La Vista, and the second one's called Super League, and the second one with Italy, both Italian-Chinese co-productions, but the second one is actually a language film comedy. So the genre is going to be, it's a football movie. And so, yeah. So I met Ping about 10 years ago, and we started, working together on co-productions, and I went over the Beijing Film Festival, and they were very welcoming, and I just decided to make my niche China many years ago, and it all came together now.
Are there any questions? Anne?
So, when you do a co-production with China, are you then really developing and, creating for the Chinese market primarily?
Who's the question?
Whoever wants to make it.
I have one particular take on that, but I want to save it until someone else goes first.
Well, I think that if the content have a Chinese element inside, relatively it's much easier. But like sci-fi and animation, those are area that don't have much barrier on culturally. But like comedy and other like history stuff that you really have to pick up something that's related to China. Otherwise, it's difficult to fill in the requirement of the soft approval.
How much of the above the line has to be Chinese nationals?
Well, they don't really, China don't really have that concept, but normally they have, creative that you need to have someone in China, and actor, actress, they need to at least 1/3 of that to be Chinese.
What was your take?
Okay, so I've, since the very first film I did, which was an actual treaty co-production with China, so it's a splitting of the copyright, and China was technically 20% of the financing. 75% of the story was set in Canada. We shot 75% of the film in China. The ratio of cost savings is about 8 to 1. There was a strong incentive to structure it that way. And, but that was basically an English language film with a Mandarin peppered throughout it, with a Chinese star, and then English speaking actors like Peter O'Toole and Sam Neill playing major roles. So there was something in it for everybody. It was not a commercial success in China. And I've become extremely skeptical over the years, trying to put together many other films since, that these split English language films with joint cast are actually going to be feasible in the theatrical market, in the big ticket. That's where the big money is in China. That I've heard investors ask me enough times, their eyes glaze over by the time you get halfway through your financing plan, explaining how all the international parts work and the recoupment and so on, and they just go, well, what if we just made a Chinese film? I've heard it over and over and over again. With one particular project, it was a gift of a co-production. It's now financed 100% by China to be done as a theatrical release film in Mandarin with a Chinese-American director. And the first draft of the script is being done in English, and it'll be then the Chinese writer will join with the director, and they'll finish it off in Mandarin. But we will shoot a Chinese movie, and we'll shoot most of it in North America.
So you're double shooting and having
No, there's no English version. It is for the Chinese market. So obey the market that is giving you the money. That's basically so I'm kind of anti co-production when it comes to that conclusion with the Chinese market. I disbelieve that there's actually this sort of the pot of gold to be made unless you're doing studio pictures with the biggest actors on the planet. Then James Cameron is directing it. They're just generally hard sell. Most of the films we're talking about here, I'm guessing, are not the $150 million tentpole franchise pictures with Marvel superheroes. They're under $50 million. They're under $25 million, and that's where you run into the big challenges.
Why aren't they working with you then? Why don't they just work with this huge pool of talent in China? If it's
Oh,
a
they are.
Chinese movie?
The biggest box office successes in China this year are not American films or foreign films. They're
understand.
Chinese domestic films.
I understand that, so then why come to you?
We come to them. So
No, they come
As a
to China.
service, as a
Yeah.
No, they have projects.
No, it's their project.
okay. So
You write it in English and then it's translated.
we pitched a story that we found in the Chinese. Actually, it was a New York Times article, and we basically took it to Chinese parties and pitched it as a co-production. And the story actually at the heart of it is fully Chinese. All the main characters were Chinese. The investors just said, "Why you want to do this as a co-production?
Right.
Why these are Chinese people and it's a Chinese story. Let's make a Chinese movie."
So you've come to them with it.
And because otherwise I had to somehow raise money to pay for a film that's got half that where most of the cast is Chinese that I can't sell in North America.
Yeah.
And by the way, Michelle Yeoh and the few Chinese actresses in she's Malaysian, but there's no bankable actors from the U.S. that have a Chinese heritage in China. There aren't. There's hardly any. It's a challenge.
Tell us about your movie.
Pasta La Vista we've had for about 4 years, Ping. When we first came together on that project. And it's about the Chinese and it's with the Italians and who invented the pasta. And there's a restaurant in China and it's been there, the noodle house, for 100 years. And then the same thing's going on in Italy. And there's a love story part of it. The Chinese girl meets the Italian boy and goes over there. And then there's a cooking show contest for who makes the best pasta. And it's just a very fun, light, breezy family movie. And yeah, we've got some key name writers right now and taking a look at doing a few tweaks to make it funnier. And then the other one, Super League, we're very excited about. It's a football movie, and there's a place called Hunan Island in China, and that's where the soccer team is. But then they want to win the cup that year, so they source, well, there's the best Italian coach in the world, and they source him to fly them over to China to coach the team to win. And then when he gets there, he discovers he can't speak a word it's a language movie. He can't speak to them. So he manages in his Italian and his hand gestures and everything to coach them to all the way and to win the cup. And we're targeting a wish list of Paul Giamatti to be the Italian coach, which everyone thinks is funny when they think of that.
Why would an Italian producer do a movie in Venezuela?
But because the main location of the film is there.
I mean, tell them about
That's right.
the project.
Otherwise, it's only a location issue.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's about the first ascent of the highest waterfall in the world, is Angel Falls, and it's in Venezuela. That's why I have to go there.
Okay,
But
I mean,
apart
tell
from
us
that,
about it.
it's an adventure film, and probably again it's going to be a co-production between this time Italy, UK, and Venezuela, because the location is there. Otherwise, would have shot it somewhere else. But that's it. So again, it's we plan to shoot next year. We are in pre-production stage now, and.
What language is it?
English. It's an English story. It's based on a British book written by one of the four climbers in 1971, and he wrote a book about the adventure and adapting the book.
So the film's language is English?
English, well, with Spanish, of course, when they meet the Indians and the locals, yes. But
And what language are your films? What languages are they in?
Well, it's going to be Ping.
Maybe English and
English.
Mandarin.
English and Mandarin paper throughout?
Yeah.
And the only reason I get involved sometimes in these international movies is because they need some United States representation on distribution or talent, or they're looking to get outside funding from investors in the United States. This is a very difficult journey. As much as we look at the world, from a production standpoint, we look at a world in Europe and outside of the United States that simply has a much easier time to navigate. In fact, I said to Ping, I've got a project for you, and it's about a Secret Service agent in the United States who goes to Beijing and enlists the lieutenant of the police department to break up a drug and killing cartel that went from the United States to China. And she said to me, "We don't work with the United States, really. You go and get a Canadian partner, and then we could talk about." But I understand that. I mean, that's what it is. The political climate is what the political climate is, and we have to adjust. We have to see how we're going to navigate through this world, and what you still want to do is find someone, regardless if you're going to film in Italy or you're going to film in China or you're going to film in Canada, find somebody in those countries that can help you lead through the imaginations of what you want to do. International productions, which is unfortunate, do not normally come or affect or get involvement from the United States, except as it relates to United States talent or distribution. So
we all desire to have a pre-sale or a guarantee of some kind, and we always have to knock on the door of your equity funds and other parties there. We can't avoid you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There is a
It's
way
a
of,
big component, the stars, the cast, the distribution.
but there is a way of
I mean,
for
I love-
We
American
love you, we
films.
hate you.
yeah,
There's a way for American films to get European partners involved. It's not officially co-production, but it's going to be an American film shot Germany, Italy, UK, France. So you'll still be eligible to get the funds and the incentives from Europe, but it's considered an American film. There are many examples in the last years of with American talent, everything. So but in that case you need a partner, local partner, because you need to know the laws, the tricks, the language and everything. It's not officially a co-production, but you can still do it, and summarize your funds and financial sources.
okay. So if I have a United States movie,
Yeah.
and if I want to get the funding, and I go to a producer in Canada and say to the producer in Canada, "Can you help me get to all those other countries? We can get money."
Yes.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but we can. Yeah.
Okay.
The copyright can't be sitting in the United
But it's not
States.
it's not going
or
to be.
we have to buy it from you.
Can't be, right.
You know, you can't be in creative and financial control of the project.
But then it's an American movie. It's not going to be a co-production.
Yeah.
So you can be eligible for cultural interest of Europe,
Okay.
whatever. It's just American
Right,
film with
so-
European money. I mean, Inglourious Basterds, to quote one, it's been a huge case studies with the Berlin film studios. They invested a lot. They used German talents, German facilities, whatever. But it's an American film. It's not a co-production between
And that
US
was a great
and
movie.
Germany.
Anyone who kills Hitler is a
There you
hero.
go. And then other examples.
Manilo?
Manlio,
Manilo.
yeah, or Manny, whatever.
Is it also still the case that if one has access to Italy, one also has access to two other countries, as in France and Germany? I know that was happening for a while, so that you could shoot in three countries.
No, there was recently a kind of treaty between Germany, France, and Italy about a fund owned, ruled by Ile of Paris, the small, the area of Paris, Berlin-Brandenburg, and the Regione Lazio, which is the region of Rome. So the three capital cities, they kind of got together, and the field commissions of every city went together to make this fund. It's very, very low money. Forget it. It's not worth doing it. Now, the best thing, for example, if a foreign film, foreign production comes to shoot in Italy, is the tax credit that you can have. Now I can't remember exactly the percentage, but it's quite high. And then you got all the facilities of single regions, especially if the region is like has a special government, inside government, it's kind of federal region, like the Alto Adige, for example, is north of Italy, or Puglia, Sicily, whatever. Then you can get service, discounts, and a bit of money. The other territories, Germany, France is very high. Belgium was one of the best funding system in Europe.
So you now have to negotiate separately with each country.
Yes, because there's a point system. Every country has a different rule. Mostly a point system that means if it's a cultural interest, then they apply. I mean, they're willing to put money. Because all these organizations are originated by the tourism office of each country. So their goal is not to make money, because they get money anyway through the government, but to show what they're spending on. So when you sign it to get the funds, you need to get access to the press, to the set, to show stills, production stills everywhere, because for them it's promotion. That's what counts. Not if the film is a huge budget or bankable or whatever. That's a plus, of course, but they're looking for, let's have, somebody that shows our little castle in the middle of nowhere, because otherwise we cannot show it anywhere. Because the economy, the small economy that rules this kind of funds is based on tourism. There's another, for example, in Bruges, in Belgium, it's a small little, amazing little town that is beautiful and it lives for tourism. So whenever you shoot there, and there's been many movies been shot there, it's a plus. I remember seeing an American movie actually about a guy who goes to Belgium, and all the film is about pigeons, right? Because for them it's very important, it's pigeon. It's a very funny movie, it's very great. But it's an American movie. This could be an example of an American movie, 100% no co-production. They got a lot of money from Belgium because it's about that. It's an American guy that discovers the tourism places were there. Of course, then if you do also language films or minority films about people or minority languages or minority culture, then it's a plus.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that the person who wants to go to those countries to take advantage of the country's cultural or different incentive programs needs to locate a production company or
Yes.
in the country.
That's right. You can't do it alone.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
How do they find the right partner? How do they find that person in that country? If they were going to go to Italy, I mean, how would they find that?
Call me. I don't know.
Call Manny.
Yeah, no joke. But really, I know it. I've been 20 years in the industry now, and I know very well the reality there. You have to watch out, like everywhere else. I mean, they're the good guys, the bad guys, the talk guys, and the practical guys. So, you can follow a bit of track records, of course, but I suggest for Italy, you need a good law firm, local production that can do also service, so it can take charge of the local expenses, like the equipment or rental or logistic, and they provide. I mean, they have a law firm and an accountant, because they have to fill up a lot of paperwork. So I suggest you get a local producer. They could be executive producer. I mean, it doesn't matter if sometimes they invest their own money, so you can kind of consider the third payment, or get then you have to negotiate eventually the market, to split the territories.
What about shooting there with an English-speaking director? How does that work
Well,
with the crew?
well, it's no point get an assistant director to speak both, or doesn't really. No, it's not important.
But what?
I mean, I shot. I kind of executive produced with Manilo Oliveira in Venice, and he can speak Portuguese and French. That's it. So, and we had a part of Italian crew, so it's no problem. I mean, I was kind of the middle guy, and.
But what we all know about is that these countries have point systems, and if you don't, well, if you exceed the points that you're allowed, if you come from the United States, they're not going to get involved in your project. It's a very.
But it's a very there are many ways to get around it. It's true they have a point system. They are very flexible. It's not very strict. I mean, even if the director is not local, from somewhere else, or creative talent, you can still get inside this point system. So you still reach the minimum. And then the funds, of course, depending on the eligible costs. Of course, the production fee is not an eligible cost, okay? But there are many tricks to go around. Of course, the airplane ticket, okay? Now, if you get the tickets from a US travel agents, are not eligible cost. But if you get it from an Italian travel agency, are eligible cost. All right? And there are many other tricks for that. So that's why you need somebody that knows those things. But it's doable. It's a lot, yeah.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Yeah, to him, you can explain what is China looking for when looking for a co-production, when looking for a project?
Well, China actually, is big, and there's a lot of competitions on the distribution. So sometimes, like me myself, is that you're looking for part of money from overseas, and also you're looking for part of the market from overseas as well. And you want some story that can be internationally tell. And that's what normally.
So is the story international, or is the story that should be Chinese or adapted to Chinese?
For me, that I'm more looking for international co-production. But sometimes, as Massey said, that some film that we, even as a foreign film, we are also doing as a Chinese film.
So you do another version?
Not really, because we just release in China as a Chinese film, but internationally it doesn't hurt. Just similar like you shoot an American film in Italy, it still is American film. And yeah, for smaller budget film, I think that's what we can do.
There is a question. They say, how is the IMAX market in China?
The IMAX.
Oh yeah, IMAX I think is pretty big. They almost like each cinema have one screen, the IMAX. So normally IMAX they're gonna pay extra money like to make an IMAX version, then sales in China, and they recoup their cost first, then share the revenue with the producer. That's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is for Pink. So I just had a movie sell at Cannes to a Chinese distributor.
Yes.
And there's lots of papers, but we're still in a censorship mode. And then somehow in the last few months, I've also read that China is, I'm sure you've all read it, putting some stricter limits on the content that they will allow.
Yeah.
So can you speak to exactly what those limits are, or what you anticipate?
Those content generally there's not over violence, not over sexually, no hurtful, defense of Chinese government, and that's the basic. Yeah.
No corrupt government officials.
Corrupt. Yeah. That's
So
the.
question. So I think this is very important. This is a passion for me, but I'm a practical person. So let me ask you this. So since the last panel, they stress, and you hear this anyway, horror is big. I know that. Would horror, and I don't care for it, horror then would or would not pass the censorship in?
Actually, horror is also pretty good in China recently, a couple years. And the way they approach is that, okay, you cannot tell ghost, but you can tell is like some spiritual. And at the end of the story, you always twist that, okay, that is not a ghost or something, that is or something else. It's in a dream or in a fantasy. So you always can manage that.
But not the violence, not the torture.
The things that the audience like it. So you just play at the age of the limit.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
So do any of you deal with series, or is it all just features? Any
Television
co-production
series.
Actually, in China, it's forbidden to do co-production series at this moment. It's the only treaty is with New Zealand, but that actually don't have people to do that yet. The reason for that is China apparently they have high numbers of episodes. So they show us like 2 episodes a day, and that doesn't work with the Western system. So sometimes you do series here, but in China we cut it into a feature film. That works some way.
And what about?
No, in Europe there are 2 kinds of funds for features. Well, more than features, documentaries, and TV series. especially in, for example, in Scandinavia, they do a lot of series, crime series. There's different funds, and you can even have funds for slate projects, and so it's doable. Yes, it doesn't really changes. Actually, it's still a new market. Now, thanks to Netflix and Amazon, it's growing even in Europe, and there's a lot of space for that, and the quality is high.
Yes, now I'm actually doing a feature film, and the Chinese investor said, "Oh, can we get the right for TV series?" And for sure, that doesn't. The series we are not but they want to do like 68 or episodes, something like that's huge. So a Western cannot show that. So then we find out maybe we can put it on Netflix for the click, for the downloading. Yeah, do that way, or train them to become like a 12 or 13. Yeah.
Just want to add
Yeah.
something. Now, of course, for shooting movies and do co-production in Europe, the best would be war movies, Second World War movies. If you have, I don't know, a Canadian battalion defending Tuscany from the Germans, then there you go. You have already 3 countries, right? Okay, but don't force yourself to think about a project that needs to get involved different countries. Just make the script, the project you would like to do, then find out how to do it, because the location-wise got everything. Language-wise, you can manage like that. So otherwise, it would be a limit, a creative limit. If you think, oh, let me, I want to get these 3 countries involved, so let me think about the history or whatever. So, I mean, you can shoot in Turin and make it look as Paris has been done before. A film about the Baltic countries now. They're very open, very new. There's a lot of subsidies and help. The only problem is it's very far and they have a very specific location, of course. But all the cities, you've got all the history periods in Europe, so you can change in a place to another. And so.
Are there any other questions? Final comments, Raymond, you want to start?
I should just mention there's one other co-production I'm putting together right now that keeps I keep hearing the themes of all these problems and challenges. It's called the Paris Quintet, and it's 5 guys in Vancouver wrote it. It's set entirely in Paris, but the co-production is now Belgium for the majority of the work, Germany for a chunk of it with a spend threshold in a certain region. And I'm using my British passport currently to structure it as a European convention project. And France, in the current version of the structure, isn't even a co-production partner. We're just shooting 2 weeks in Paris because it's basically unaffordable at our budget level, which is around 5 million euros. So I have this peculiar thing where I'm shooting an English language film in France, but I'm not in France, and it's about France. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. To me, it's like a scrambled egg project. I can't, sometimes I'm just pinching myself, am I really doing this? But it's fun. I'm loving working with a European combination of partners. So
Final comment though, now after that story. Do you final advice?
Final advice, yeah, make the film, focus on making a great film, and don't think about trying to wrap the project around an opportunity in a certain region or anywhere. It all starts, the reason I'm doing the Paris Quintet is the best script I ever read. There's no other reason I got involved in it, not because I wanted to do a film with France, Belgium, and Germany. That's just the way it's turned out as the way to make the film that's set there, and it's a great script.
Payne, any final comment?
Find the right scripts and find the right people.
So this co-production system takes time. So whenever you think of explore the European funds wonderland, I'm the white rabbit to call.
Nancy?
All the passion in the world won't finance a film. Find the money first.
Yeah, the final comment is
Then you can do what you
that if you want to involve a country outside of the United States, find the right representatives to help you navigate those foreign countries' waters, because they're not, some of them, or most of them, are not so straightforward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corky.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.